here a piece of cherry, something that fell down over at my dad's house a few weeks ago, and I'm going to use it to make my spoon. You can see it's probably about maybe 5-6 inches, maybe a little less, about 5 inches in diameter. And first thing I'm going to look for is right here. I have a little bit of a crack. Okay, so I'm going to split out along this crack here to split the piece in half. From that point, I have a choice of how I'm going to orient the spoon in the blank. So if I split this into quarters, it's pretty easy to make a quarter sawn blank. I'm going to split along here. That's where the crack is. From that point, over here where I have a little bit more material, you know, the pith of the wood where the crack is occurring is not quite in the center. So from here, I'm going to split it in half this way. And probably over on this side, you know, I could get some small spoons from here and here, but I'll probably try and get a spoon kind of out of this area. Okay. So the procedure is going to be to cut here and cut here, and then I'm going to flatten this out, and ultimately my spoon is going to basically occur in this area here. All right, so to do that, come over to my trusty stump here. I've got my carving hatchet. Okay. I'm placing the blade along that split. You're going to need your trusty mallet that you made in Wood Turning Fundamentals with Luke Voitas. Take your mallet. Okay. And of course, this piece has quite a bit of twist in it. More than I really like to see. You can see how twisted this is here. But we're going to work with it. It should be all right. Generally, you know, you want to have something as straight as possible. That's just going to make predicting your cuts a lot easier. So from this point, pith of the tree, you can actually see this darkened part right through here. I'm going to split along there, and I should be able to get 2 blanks out of this piece. Okay, looks good. You can kind of see the curvature here. It's not too severe, but you know, ultimately I look for something that's a little bit straighter. What I do see already is that I'm going to have a little bit of curl in this piece, which should be really attractive. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that's going to turn out. So I have this flat surface. This is basically where I'm going to place the bowl of the spoon. It's kind of widest out here. This is probably where I'm going to place the bowl. Handle's going to come down through here. And the back side here is just going to get reduced down. So that round area where the roundness of the tree is, that's going to get cut away. Okay. So to start, I'm going to kind of axe in that crank. So that's going to be a descent through the handle into the bowl area over here. So I need to kind of create that low point to start. Okay, kind of creating a recess in the front here. And working my way back. Okay, you can already see made quite a bit of progress into that slope there. I want to capitalize on the entire length here. So ultimately I want the bowl to end right over here. I'm going to try and axe that bowl in right away. So I don't want to flip this over and try to axe in this direction. It's too close to my fingers. So what I can do is, rather than working with the grain, which is really the easiest way to do it, I might just axe out some of this waste here to make things easier. What I'm going to do is come down through the front here and axe across the grain. I'm kind of trying to get to that low point. It dips down quite severely there. Ultimately, that's not what I'm going to have, but right now that's fine for it to be there. I'm just trying to establish that flat plane where we're actually going to have the bowl of the spoon. So I still have a big chunk out in the front here, so I need to remove that. So I have to reduce it down just a little bit further. So ultimately what I'm doing there is similar to what I would do with a chisel and a paring cut. I'm working across the grain. You could see I was getting nice kind of peels coming across there. Now I've got it basically all cleaned up. In the front here, I'm actually making a cooking spoon. So it's gonna be a right-handed spoon, which means it's gonna have a flat edge across, so that's gonna get chopped out. I'm not worried about it. Same kind of situation if I was making a round bowled spoon. This area would be cut away, so I'm not super worried about it. I don't want to really reduce it down too much further because you can see it's going to start to rather severely affect how deep and how thick the bowl of the spoon is going to be. You know, right now I can kind of get the entire, it's a little sloppy there, but let's draw it and then you can see it. I'm going to try and get all of that depth there. And that little bit of curvature that's following the outside of the tree, that's fine. The bottom of the spoon bowl is going to be rounded anyway, so we're not worried about that. So now I have to kind of get a real shape going here. This looks kind of bizarre. I'm going to work my way up the handle so that this is a straight plane going into another straight plane here. So just kind of scooting up the handle. This area has kind of been reduced. And I have to kind of stop prematurely here. If I keep smacking, I'm going to split that little bit of the bowl out of there, but you can see we're getting a lot closer to flat. Okay, so the profile here in the front is really basically what I'm looking for. I still have kind of the split waney edge here. Not waney, but just the split edge. So I need to reduce this back so that I have a flat trajectory from kind of the low point here into the back here. Okay, so I'm getting kind of close to where I'm holding the piece, so my hand is actually positioned behind the blank as I'm hitting on the top. I'd really have to go crazy to actually hit my hand here, but I'm being careful nonetheless. Okay, so at this point I really have that kind of crank axed in here. You know, one thing you can kind of see is that the grain of the wood, you know, it runs out here into that flat area. And that's what we're looking for. So we're always, you know, when we're cutting through wood, we're trying to compress the fibers if, which isn't really possible, we were axing in this direction, we'd pull those fibers apart, it would split out, and it wouldn't give us a clean cut. So by creating this crank here, it ensures that when we do actually begin using our knives, we're always going to be cutting through the fibers. This is going to prevent tear out. In the case of the bowl up here, you can see basically the same thing is happening. There's a transition right here in the middle. That's what we're looking for. Also, you can see the grain is quite a bit longer through the bowl here. And this is going to provide a little bit of extra strength in the bowl. The grain isn't quite as short as it will be in the handle, but in the handle it's a little bit beefier, it's a little bit fatter, so we don't really need to worry about that so much. So now I'm going to try to make the back side parallel to the top side here. And this tends to be quite a bit easier, and we can kind of waste that wood away rather rapidly. So we're going to give that a shot. Okay, so already I've gotten a nice flat parallel surface here. You can see basically I followed right along that line that I made. So that looks good for the bowl area. Now I need to start cutting down through into the handle here. When I start this cut too, I'm not starting up here because I want to get the material that's holding all of this wood out of the way. So I'm starting at the bottom, getting the wood out of the way so that as I move up, everything just falls away, okay? Okay, so moving up already, it's pretty nice and flat here. You can see I've switched to taking quite a bit more of a gentle cut here. I've also choked up on my hatchet quite a bit. This is giving me quite a bit more control, and I'm looking for that because this is an area where I don't want to, if I were to make contact up here, this would cause this entire area to split out. The grain's running this way, so it's going to split with the grain and come flying out. So trying to keep some control and just smooth this out a bit. So I think we're all set here. You can see I have a nice flat piece, top and bottom. I've got a little bit of the sapwood here, which is something that I'm going to try to utilize a bit visually. On the back side, you can see this little bit of wane, that's the barky area, is kind of interfering a little bit. Not a big deal, we're going to carve that away. And where it is interfering kind of a little bit with the bowl here, that too is going to get carved away. This is, maybe 3 inches wide or so. Most spoons are not going to be practical with that kind of width. This is going to be a cooking spoon. I want it to be, kind of robust, but I also want to, make it manageable. So, and also strong. So having something that's just a little bit undersized here is going to be helpful. So the next step, I have a nice flat surface on which to actually draw my profile, okay? So I do this a little bit roughly.